नमस्कार दोस्तों, संविधान से संबंधित पहलुओं को उजागर करने की इस श्रृंखला में आज का विषय है प्रियम्बल में प्रमुख रूप से स्थान दिए गए कुछ शब्दों की कहानी। द स्टोरी ऑफ सर्टन वर्ड्स एंड एक्सप्रेशंस इंक्लूडेड इन द प्रियम्बल ऑफ आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। Constitution making process formally commenced with the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly in early December 1946. Within few days of the first meeting, an important document called Objectives Resolution was introduced in the Assembly. The purpose of this resolution was to provide a framework of principles and direction for framing of our Constitution. It was also important because a brief version of the Objectives Resolution later became the Preamble of the Constitution. Well, Objectives Resolution opens with the words, to constitute India into an independent sovereign republic. Independent sovereign republic, different from the opening words of our original preamble, that is, to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic. So the word democratic was missing from the Objectives Resolution, which was noticed by the members of Assembly, and Jawaharlal Nehru, who had drafted this resolution, responded by saying that the word republic is there, and he felt that republic includes democratic, or for that matter, republic would always be democratic. He, however, later considered, saying, it is conceivable that a republic may not be democratic. At that time, USSR was already a republic, and just a few months before our constitution was adopted, communists seized power in China and declared China a republic. Now, with such examples of republic, there was no doubt in the minds of the makers of the constitution that the word democratic should be expressly mentioned in the preamble. And so we have the word democratic mentioned in our preamble. Now coming to other words, socialist and secular. Both these words were not there in the Objectives Resolution, and so also they were not there in original preamble, as we know that these words were added through 42nd Amendment in our preamble. The Constituent Assembly debates revealed that the absence of the words socialist and secular in the Objectives Resolution was not an inadvertent omission, but a deliberate, conscious decision. So let us find out how and why the word socialist and secular were omitted from the Objectives Resolution and the preamble. Let us start with the word socialist. It is true that our freedom movement and thought process at that time was influenced by socialist ideas to such an extent that 1931 Karachi Resolution on Fundamental Rights was also called a Socialist Manifesto. But at the same time, the members of Assembly who generally believed in social democracy were mindful of the fact that the regime change in socialist states was mostly associated with revolution, bloodshed and violence. And therefore, while they are willing to accommodate socialist ideas in our constitution, they are certainly not prepared to bind our constitution to socialist ideology. This can be seen from the fact that in the directives principle, on one hand, we have provisions like state control and ownership of resources and means of production. On the other hand, Assembly did not allow the use of expression socialist order in Article 38. The marginal heading of Article 38 requires state to secure social order for the promotion of the welfare of the people. During the discussion on final draft of the Constitution, certain left-leaning members demanded that the expression social order be replaced by socialist order. They not just demanded or insisted, but moved an amendment to this effect. The amendment to change the expression social order with socialist order was defeated in the Assembly by majority vote. It is clear testimony to the mood of the Assembly that it was not willing to bind our constitution irrevocably to socialist ideology by including the word socialist anywhere in the constitution or in the preamble. Now coming to word secular, the thoughts and ideas regarding religious freedom and freedom of conscience were part of public discourse during freedom movement, and as early as 1924 these ideas were incorporated in the Commonwealth of India Bill drafted by Mrs. Annie Besant. Karachi Resolution explicitly mentions neutrality of the state with respect to religion. In the Objectives Resolution, freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship is clearly articulated, and the same is exactly reproduced in the preamble of the Constitution. Rest of the ideas regarding religious freedom are comprehensively captured in Article 25 of the Constitution, which starts with a caveat that religious freedom shall be subject to public order, health and morality. That is, all the rights associated with religious freedom are subject to law, and that Constitution is supreme and not the religious texts or tenets, however sacred one may believe them to be. No single word can capture the spirit of these provisions in its entirety. Certainly not the word secular, which essentially conveys the separation of the authority of the church and the state, or in the words of Thomas Jefferson, a wall between church and state. Regarding choice of the words or exclusion of certain words, Nehru himself had clarified in the assembly, saying that we have not laid down the theoretical words but rather the contents of the things we desire. And yet the words socialist and secular were added in the preamble of the Constitution through 42nd Amendment in 1976. It was nothing but the betrayal of the wisdom and spirit of the makers of the Constitution and the Constituent Assembly. Well, this is how things stand as of date. What can be done about it? What are the options? That is in the next video. Till then, if you find there are any useful takeaways from this video, do like it, share it and subscribe it. Thank you. Jai Hind.